Hey, this is Pastor Mark. Welcome again to the Fultondale First Podcast. On today's episode, I sit down with Michael Bozeman. He's from Pathways Professional Counseling, also with the Alabama Baptist Children's Home. And so you'll discover how you, without maybe even knowing it, have had an impact on families all across our state. But we'll also discover how we can have an even greater impact. So I can't wait for this conversation.
Welcome to the Fultondale First Podcast. Our mission at Fultondale First is to love God, love people, and make disciples. And this podcast is aimed to help you join that mission. Thanks for joining us for this episode.
Welcome to this episode of the Fultondale First Podcast. I'm excited. So my friend Bozeman, Michael Bozeman, everybody calls him Bozeman, is here with me. And welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited you're here. So Michael wears a lot of hats. And
they're large hats.
Yeah. That's right.
They're hard to find if you go to like a sporting goods store.
So Michael works with Alabama Baptist Children's Home, Pathways Professional Counseling,
Yep.
And so we're going to talk a lot about that. But if you would, most of our folks probably don't know you, so tell us a little bit about you and your story and how God got you where you are.
Okay, so I'm from Gadsden, Alabama, Rainbow City. Born and raised there. Have a marketing degree. And I
that
knew,
in common.
yeah, right, yeah. You know, I tell people all the time, the funniest thing is I got my marketing degree first, and then I didn't start using my marketing degree until, I don't know, last year or something. But the Lord called me into ministry in college, and that just worked out that I would be a youth pastor. I always, people said, hey, you act like you're 13, you might as well be a youth pastor. So I was blessed to work at the same church in Gadsden for, almost 15 years, roughly 14 years, whatever. And it was in that season, I went to seminary. I remember going to seminary, and when I first started seminary, I just kind of didn't know. I knew I loved the Lord. I loved local church ministry and all those things. And so, but I knew I didn't want to be a pastor, like doing what you do. I always wanted to be the guy behind the guy, right? Like, and not because I love taking a back seat, but what I always felt like you guys, you get locked up in your office and you're studying, and I'm like, that's not me. I want to be out. I want to be out talking to people. If you got to tell me Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I got to lock myself in my office and read a bunch of commentaries, and I'm like, ooh, I couldn't think of anything worse. So when I was in seminary, they, I had some pretty good professors that kind of moved me to more of like the Christian education side, because I loved discipleship, and I loved, figuring out a way to, I don't know, like just grow people in that way. But also, I always say now, my perfect job would be like an assimilation pastor. I don't know why. Like I've always, that's just one of those things where it's kind of like I want to get this person that's new to the church, and then figure out a way to plug them into all aspects of the faith family, and just to utilize their gifts, their abilities. So, right, because I feel like so often in church, you know how it is. People, and you guys know, you've been to churches before, you come somewhere and you know how the Lord's gifted you, but you just can't really find that. But so having somebody that can just, figure those things out for you.
Find the fit,
yeah. But now I say all that, it's my perfect job. I love my job now, so I'm not saying I'm looking for that job, but because I really love what I do. So I went to seminary, and it was so funny because I finished seminary and I was like, oh, I'm never going back to school. I remember when I graduated high school, my mom was like, well, where are you going to college? I said, oh, I'm not going to college. That's not for me. I hate school. I barely, I got out of high school. I was like, I'm done,
I can relate to that.
And my mom says, okay, good. You owe me $500. And I said, what? She said, well, if you're not going to college, you're going to pay rent. And you owe me $500. I mean, I signed up for Gadsden State. Because one thing I didn't have was $500.
That's right.
But I had time, so I went to college. And it was through all that, working with teenagers and society and the world being what it was. My kids were struggling with stuff that I didn't understand. And I remember one night the Lord was just like, well, go learn it. Right? Like and I remember having this tug of war match where I was saying, yeah, but I don't want to go to school. And one thing my mom always told me was how'd she say it? She said, don't limit what the Lord can do through you because you're too lazy to go educate yourself.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
That's pretty good.
So honestly, I started taking some classes from Liberty,
Mm-hmm.
just in counseling, because I needed to understand things like depression and anxiety, self-harm, suicidal ideation. That stuff just didn't make sense to me. But I had a lot of kids struggling with it. And honestly, I didn't trust counselors in that season of my life. I thought they're weird. They're going to lead you to want to be something different than than you.
Sure.
Right? Like, and so I thought I'll just go learn it, so I'll have something to say when my kids are coming to me. And honestly, I just fell in love with it. And I remember going through the process and Liberty saying you got to do an internship, and it was a moment of this just praying, okay, Lord, like if this is what's next, and I honestly Googled, I got on my computer and Googled Christian counselors near me, because I knew I needed somebody to do an internship with, and didn't know what that looked like or how to make that, and Pathways popped up. I had no idea who Pathways was. I'd never heard of them.
Whoever was in charge of their Google search engine optimization, great job.
Yeah, right. And so I basically call Pathways and say, this is who I am. I need to do an internship. Do y'all take him? And they were like, we take one, but you got to come down for an interview. And so I come down to Birmingham and interview with who's the president of Pathways, Ross, and back then was Lisa King was the clinical supervisor. And I remember sitting in a room with these two people and them saying, they got other people interviewing for the position. And it was like probably really good looking people that were like came out of the womb, knew that they just wanted to help people in crisis. And I'm a washed up, has been, fat, bald youth pastor and going, hey, y'all hire me, but the Lord was gracious and they offered me the position, and so did my internship through them. And I always tell people after my internship semester, I suckered them into hiring me. And for the first few years, like I was all over North Alabama. I mean, it was crazy. I had offices in Scottsboro, Rainsville, Pisgah, Gunnersville, Gadsden, and I came to Birmingham. Wow. It was crazy. But it was awesome, right? So I cut my teeth up on Sand Mountain and all that area and come back into Birmingham. And this is going on my 9th year, full time with Pathways in the Children's Home. And so I did counseling straight for, 6-7 of those years. And somewhere along the lines, they kind of moved me to working with some of the children's home, working in the engagement piece of the children's home. Because one thing I don't do is meet a stranger, and I love I met you, we're like, immediately I'm like, hey, Mark, we're best friends. This is the way it is. And so the crazy thing now is over the course of the last couple of years, I've transitioned into more of a role with the children's home, still hold some counseling duties, but the vast majority of what I do now is work with the children's home, and what they call the director of church engagement. So how do we engage the local church better as a ministry as a whole statewide? Right. That's my focus.
That's your role.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. So actually, I met Michael the first time because I went to Pathways and needed a counselor, and there
I
was.
can confirm or deny nothing.
That's right. That's right. Good answer.
That's right.
But but let's talk about Pathways for just a minute.
Okay.
Because I think I want our people to understand Pathways and know what Pathways does. So anytime anybody ever comes to me, needing anything beyond maybe premarital counseling, my default response is I can give you Pathways number. Yeah. And it's not because I'm trying to slough them off on somebody else.
Sure, yeah.
It's because I believe in what Pathways does. Yeah. And I know Pathways works. And so just full disclosure, not only have I been to Pathways, everybody in my family has been to Pathways because we trust what Pathways does and the work they do. So talk to us a little bit about Pathways, because a lot of our people probably have no idea what they do and what's available.
Yeah, so Pathways started with one counselor because of kids in care in the children's home at that time. Yeah. And over the years, and that's funny, that counselor was Rod Marshall, who's now the CEO of the Children's Home.
I did not
right?
know that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
He just celebrated 30 years with the Children's Home, so it's pretty impressive. And he just turned 60, so half his life he's worked for the Children's Home.
Wow.
But so Pathways it's a statewide professional counseling agency where all of our counselors are faith based, right? But in professional sense too, they're all licensed, whether they're a licensed social worker or a licensed counselor, LPC. And we see, people with all different things, right? I mean, granted, we do see our foster kids, our foster families, but we're community too. So most of our people are from all over Alabama, from all walks of life. I always thought it was funny when I had offices in Baptists, because some Baptist associations around the state will give us an office to work out. We'll put a counselor there. I've always thought it was funny over the years when I was, in all those, that the Lord has a sense of humor, and it's funny to me that like people that care nothing about Jesus would show up at the Sand Mountain Baptist Association
office,
right? And I'm sitting here going, Lord, you got a sense of humor. but it was awesome because, right? Like I remember, my first time getting somebody who just basically looked me in the face and said, I don't want you to use the Bible. And I remember thinking, well, you just took the bullets out of my gun.
Yeah.
I don't know what I got to offer. And I just used it and didn't tell them.
Right.
Because real talk, I was sitting here going, like, what you need is peace and joy and forgiveness. And I don't know where you think those things come from.
Other than the gospel.
No, right, like those things came from the Bible,
That's
right?
right.
So
That's right.
I'm telling you what you need, but you tell me I can't go there to get it. So, and I remember thinking, you just use, biblical principles, and people are like, man, that's really good. I'm like, I know, it's crazy, right?
That's so true.
But Pathways it's an unbelievable ministry, and we call it a ministry even though we are a professional counseling agency because it is that, right? Like just come alongside people and meet them in tough spots, and we have got some. Like, take me off the table, but we have got some unbelievable therapists across this state that, and they just love people and they love Jesus and they want to see wholeness in people, right? And I don't know. So yeah, it's a great, and I tell people all the time, the Lord created us with this intrinsic need for people, right? Like we all need people.
That's right.
But we live in a society, even a society that we grow up in a very church world culture society, that says, don't ever tell people that you're struggling.
Don't tell people your business.
No, like if you're struggling, you smile through it. And you can go home and you can cry in your pillow all night long, and then you get up tomorrow, just make sure you can get that face back on before you go wherever you're going.
That is so true.
And counseling, man, it just gives people the opportunity to do what the Lord created them to do. And so I always say, people always come to my office and they're always like, man, I feel so much better. Thank you so much. And I'm thinking, I didn't do nothing. Like all I really did was allow you to do what Christ, instilled in you to need, right? Like I always say, he created more than one person for a reason because he knew this was going to be a struggle. Things were going to come our way, and we were going to need each other. And our society and the way that we are today is, we're just from a very early age. We learn very well how to just mask all of those things. Yeah. And I'm sure there's people watching this that aren't that way, and they live in a much different headspace than the rest of us who are like, I ain't telling nobody.
That's right. That's right. I think the majority of people live there. Right. And I tell people all the time, everybody needs counseling. Everybody. Sure. You don't wait until a crisis, right? Yeah. Everybody needs it, whether you think you have problems or not. And that's why I'm very transparent about my journey. I need counseling all the time, and so I think it's healthy. And so I love the fact that Pathways obviously has an office in Birmingham, but they've got offices, like you said, all over, and association offices. But you also meet people online.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah. COVID did that for us.
Yeah, that's right.
Like COVID opened up a whole new thing. And so I was, and I'll tell you this, but one of my things, because of my background in church ministry, and I hold very little counseling appointments now. I'm very selective because I'm not in the office like I used to be. So a lot of what I do is virtual teletherapy because I may be in Mobile, but I can still do counseling through my computer, right?
That's right.
And so, I have clients from all the way from Florence to Mobile, right, all over the state of Alabama. And that's one thing that COVID kind of opened up for us too. And because when you think about when you work for a ministry or an agency that has counselors, and some of our counselors, some of them are, I don't want to say better, but they're just trained in different ways.
Sure.
And so you can have somebody's intake come in and I can go, oh my gosh, this person Rhett would be an excellent fit for this person based on where they're struggling or what they're coming in for. And so it opens up, telehealth kind of opened that up for us to be able to say, man, the best would be X.
Right. Just limited to location.
Now, if you want to come,
geography,
but if you want to come and sit
Sure.
down, then you that's fine. But I'm just saying, like, that's just another way
That's
that
awesome.
you can do that,
Yeah.
right? And realistically, as well as I do, people hold our phones all the time, and we're very much a virtual world now. That I used to always tell people I like to at least meet with somebody in person once, twice, whatever,
Right.
just because I think it's important for you to just know me.
Mm-hmm.
You really know somebody when you sit in the room with them, right?
That's right.
But I have a lot of clients I've never done that with, so
Mm-hmm.
I prefer that. But if it never happens, but I can tell you that there's pastors I've met with before that if I was ever in there close to them, then I would go to their office and just work. I don't know. My bosses would probably hate me, saying that, but I don't really ever just throw it out there. But I'm just saying, like, if you're in Mobile and Birmingham, you're not going to want to drive to. But if I'm in Mobile, then I'm definitely going to go by. And, might as well.
Absolutely.
Right? Perfect.
So I'm gonna put Pathways contact information certainly in the show notes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if somebody's watching or listening that thinks they're ready
Absolutely.
for that, then
You can go online, fill out pathwaysprofessional.org, longest web address in the history of web addresses. But that's our email too. Like you talk about
it's long.
typing that thing out. It's a good thing I don't have to bubble it in. It'd take me forever. But you can go on and request an appointment, right? Like somebody will reach out to you. Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
because I want to talk about the children's home at large and especially fostering.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a passion for this, and some people watch or listen may know why. But so I grew up in Troy, Alabama, and that's where the Alabama Baptist Children's Home headquarters was during that time.
Yeah.
And so most of my best friends growing up, I didn't realize it, but they were foster kids.
Wow. Yeah.
And I just knew they lived in that big house
Yeah.
on the hill in Troy, Alabama. And so that's who I hung with. That's who I did life with. And as I got older, I began to become more aware, realizing, okay, they don't have parents like I do. They have house parents, and it's, again, different model then than it is now.
Right.
But it just, God, even at an early age, broke my heart for families that, for children especially that didn't have, parents
Stability.
who were able, stability, and parents who were able to provide the stability that I had.
Right. Yeah.
And so as I got older and had kids, God continued to kind of put that on my heart. In fact, obviously we're not rich by any means, but when we planned our giving, the Alabama Baptist Children's Home is probably the largest benefactor.
Yeah.
And because it's just who we are. It's our heart. So I want to ask about that. So tell us, because again, people watching, listening probably have no idea the scope.
Right.
So talk about, first of all, the children's home and what's involved there, but also, if you don't mind, talk about the need in Alabama.
Okay. So the Alabama Baptist Children's Home is the largest faith-based foster care provider in the state, which basically means all of our homes are faith-based, right? Christians. And we have locations all over the state, right? And Huntsville being our newest, Decatur, I'm just going to work down. We have Huntsville, Decatur, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Oxford, Auburn, Mobile, Dothan. We have three family care homes, which are family care homes are homes where single moms and their children can live in for up to, I think it's 18 months now. We have one in Gardendale, we have one in Alabaster, and we have one in Mobile. And so basically, if you're familiar, if you know much about the children's home, we used to be campus care, but the government did some shifting around stuff that made campus care very difficult. And so we had to pivot to what we were doing, and we pivoted to community-based foster care. And so last year we cared for right at 500 children, right? Like, and when you say that, people are always like, man, that's a ton. The problem is there's 6,000 children in the foster care system at any given time in the state of Alabama. In Alabama. So Rod Marshall, our CEO, has, he's got a vision for what's going to happen by 2031. In 2031, the children's home turns 140 years old. So they're calling it Vision 140. And our goal by then is to pretty much double what we're doing, so that we would have 1,000. We'd be able to care for 1,000 kids in care. And so basically, we are what if you know much about foster care, we have our foster families that are licensed through the state, but we have what we call our families, right? And so the difference being the same kids that come, if you were a foster family with DHR, they're all coming from DHR.
Right.
So people ask me a lot of times, what's the difference between fostering with DHR and fostering with the Alabama Baptist Children's Home? And so I'm going to say ABCH, and that's what I mean from now on. It's a whole lot better. And so one of the main differences I tell people, when you foster with ABCH, your family gets a social worker. So let's say your family decided to foster, right? The child that you fostered would have a DHR social worker.
Right.
Your family would get an ABCH social worker, which means when you need something, you can call us, and we're going to be the go-between. We're going to answer. We're going to, right? And so it's an unbelievable support system. And I always say, you kind of come into this family where we can't make it not hard. Fostering is hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's not an easy thing, but we can give you as much resources we can possibly give you to help in all of those things, right? And I say it's generous donors and churches throughout the state of Alabama that provide all the things that our kids need across the state, right? But it's I would say that's one of the you also get the backing of Pathways, right? You get counseling. Your family gets counseling, right? Because it is it's not super easy, right? And so, but that's who we are, and it's what we do day in and day out, right? So if you ask me about the biggest needs we have, we won't get to our vision without people. So I would say our biggest need is people, right? We need people that will just pray about fostering and just see where the Lord kind of leads in that area, right? And granted, not everybody's called to foster, right? So people ask me all the time, what do you need? And I always say, well, if I can get what I need in order, I need people and we need resource, right? Because the more people that sign up, the more it costs we got to hire more social workers, or you got to do all those things. So, and resources can be a lot of different things. Financially, you can always do a bunch of different things.
Sure.
That's our greatest. That's the two needs that we have. And I will say this: one thing I know for a fact is we need people that will foster teenagers, because that is just that's hard.
Hard to find. People who are willing to do that.
Because we also with the children's home, we want to protect things like birth order. Right, and so since the majority of the people that foster are younger. They have younger kids.
They don't have teenagers yet.
We don't have homes, a lot of homes that'll say, "Hey, give me the teenager." Right. Now my heart's teenagers, right? But I also know a teenager that's lived in a traumatized world for, a lot of years comes with a lot of struggle, right? So it's not an easy thing all the time,
right?
But I would say that's our greatest need, right? Like is people, because we also, if you think about it like this, like on my team, some of our jobs are like helping recruit foster families and going and I say recruiting, it's basically doing this kind of stuff where we talk about it, because a lot of people have no idea what we do or how they can be involved and those kind of things. And so I always say it's when people get involved when they know, right? And so if they don't know, that's on us. We haven't done a good job of telling, you know what I'm saying? So, but so it's why it's one of my favorite things to do is just kind of share who we are and what we do and the way people can plug in and be involved, right?
So I'm going to review. I mean, it's going to repeat, but it's just.
Oh, wait, let me go back to this because I was going to say this and then I forgot. The hard part sometimes is not only do we're not an adoption agency, but we also do a lot of adoptions every year. Yeah. And so when you think about a family that, like we did 40-something adoptions last year. So you do the math. Wow. A lot of times those people that adopt, guess what they do? They close their homes.
Right.
Because their homes are full now. They don't have space to take in another foster kid. Yeah. So not only am I trying to find more foster families, I'm having to replace the foster families that we want that.
The best ones.
Right. So we don't want to, it's not a bad, I'm not sitting here going, oh my gosh, but it is when you look at, for us to double what we do right now, we gotta double the foster families, and when you're
really more than double,
right, I have to every year because we can't, and it's a beautiful thing to watch these families become whole, right, with those children. But I'm looking at it going, oh man, we gotta need another family now. We gotta, because there's another kid coming into care.
Sure.
Right. There's always another kid coming into care.
6,000 kids.
Unbelievable.
In our state, and we, as Alabama Baptists, we have 500 foster homes right now.
Well, so, I would say there may be people that are fostering Baptists that are fostering that they're just not with us.
Right.
Why they would do that, I don't know. Right. But I mean, because of
but through the children's home, we got 500 children in foster. I mean, big numbers. So that's 5,500, 5,500 children in Alabama that who knows what kind of home they're in. I mean, some of them are in good homes.
Absolutely,
I'm sure.
Absolutely.
But some of them, I imagine, are in a tough spot. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I know when I tell you this, I'm preaching to the choir, but I think it's pretty clear in Scripture what God says true religion is, and it's caring for widows and orphans, and
in their distress.
In their distress, and that's what we're talking about here. Wow. So, all right. So. I'm going to follow up with a couple more questions.
I'll even say this, about Alabama Baptist. So, like, sometimes I'll look at how many churches we got in the state,
3,200.
And I'm thinking, every church don't even have to take 2 kids, right? You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Some of these bigger ones can take 4 or 5. You know what I'm saying?
If every church took 1.
That's right.
I mean, we'd be way over Rod's goal, right?
Right.
So
there would be no foster care crisis. And I think that's the problem. I think sometimes for me, like sometimes I think I hit this. Sometimes in my, in my time alone with the Lord, I'm always like, Lord, like, and I just struggle, like, with the fact that somewhere along the line, the church let the government do what the church should do.
Yeah.
Because the government's not mandated by Jesus to care for orphans.
That's right.
The church is.
That's right.
Right? And so somewhere along the line, the good news is it happened before me and you were here.
That's right.
So we're not going to take the blame, But somewhere along the lines, the church just took their hands off of something and let the government deal with it.
And but I think our responsibility now, we are alive now.
That's right.
And we're okay with it. We can't be okay with that.
Right.
We've inherited that responsibility. Yeah. We've got it. So, okay, so where, and you obviously, I know you can't mention names and stuff like that, but where do you see God working in, around our state through the children's home, through the foster care families, where have you seen God really transform some
Well,
stuff?
like in our world, we call it, we say that we get miracle blind, because honestly, I feel like in so much of what we do, I mean, we just see God do amazing, miraculous things across the state all the time. Like, I mean, you could just take an office and I could just tell you some of these things that where we get to witness the Lord just, I don't know, just, I guess as a therapist, right? Like, I'm sitting there and watching this kid come in and I see just the horrible things that this kid has gone through. And I see him a month or two later in a home where people daily made it a point to know, understand, care, that kid be seen. Just a different kid that walks in kids are resilient. They're the most resilient creatures God has ever created. It's unbelievable how resilient children are, right? But I think, like, I don't know if I can necessarily say, hey, I see it more so in any one of these offices, because if I went and got all the leadership from all the different offices and brought them in this room and have them just share stories, you'd be like, oh, God's working everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's doing amazing work all over the state. But I think, like, for me, I'm really more tied into Birmingham office and Oxford office, because if I'm not traveling somewhere, I'm in those two regions the most, and it's almost identical the way I get to watch families. It's always astounding to me that you take a family who, just your normal family, right? They're not rich. They don't make a ton of money. Mom and dad both work. They got a couple kids. You know what I mean? And they just say, hey, we just feel like we're supposed to do this. And you think, oh my goodness, it's going to be chaotic. Yeah, it's probably chaotic. I mean, I'm not in the middle of it, but I get to watch it. But man, you just watch this family, and it's not like they have some sort of special power. All they're doing is walking out what Jesus told them to do and love this kid. And yeah, it comes with its own special challenges, but the reward on the other side, like, I mean, it's just like, and I get the privilege of sitting over here in the cheap seats, right, and watching this kid just transform. And maybe we only have that kid for 3 or 4 months, right? Like, maybe we have that kid a year. I don't know. But what I do know is, in 3 or 4 months or a week or however long that kid may be in care, they're loved, and the gospel is instilled in them, right? Like, even if we're just a very small blip in the time span of this child, right? There is this season where somebody says, man, Jesus loves you. We love you. And the cool thing about my job is, it's not just that family. Man, it's collectively across the state. It's every person that's sown into the children's home has a hand in that, right? And that's when you pull way back and you see it that way, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I love to write people that are partners with us, like write them a note and just say, man, thank you for partnering with us. One of the things I always like to say is, I'd love to come share how our partnership is making a difference across the state in the lives of vulnerable children. Because people partner, people will give, right? But they may never know, like, just the impact that's making in the lives of children all over the state of Alabama, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, some days are hard.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's super rewarding. This is a super rewarding job.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. So, you mentioned partnership, and that's really what I want to close on. So, somebody watching, somebody listening, maybe God's kind of put in your heart a little bit. What are ways that we, individuals, but our church too, what are ways that we can get more involved? What are ways that we can support what God's doing through Children's Home? And, what are ways that we can partner with what God's doing?
I mean, first and foremost, I would say, if you pray about this and you feel like the Lord's calling you, because I always say, I'm not looking for just anybody that'll sign up and give me a yes. I want people that the Lord's called to do it, because if the Lord's called you to do it, when it gets rough, you stay in it. You know what I'm saying? You recognize it that way. But like definitely, if partnering with us through foster care, right? Partnering with us through different opportunities to possibly come alongside some foster families and try to, offer them, resource and help and those kind of things financially, right? Like if you got extra money and you're looking for a place to sow that money, I can promise you that money is making an unbelievable kingdom impact in the life of kids all over the state. The hard part is we used to be a place where you could really volunteer at our homes and stuff. Well, now, I mean, I guess I could send you to foster families home. Get out of my yard, will you? But those are the two main ways. Yeah. Now I will say, and I'll give you this, and maybe you can attach it to this podcast and even share it on Sundays. But sure. Coming up at the end of April, we're doing a virtual foster parent interest meeting.
Oh, that's awesome.
So people that may be interested, it's like they'll get on there for about an hour, and you can type in questions, and you can just listen, and we give you the best we got to kind of help people understand, hey, what does it take? What do we do? How do we do it? All of those kind of things. Yeah. And so they can sign up if you're just interested. You just want to know more about it. Like one thing we did notice was it was just a great opportunity because we did one. This will be our second time to do this. Mm-hmm. I think the first one we had I can't remember 30-something or 40-something families on the call. Like that's crazy just to offer that and see awesome. Right so you think about it in terms like that. But it's a very non-threatening way to learn more about it and what that looks like. Right. And I'll send you the link and you can
I'll share
attach that. But to anybody that maybe, you can even throw it. I think it has a QR code even, and you can just throw it up on the screen. We love QR codes. I love a QR code. But you sign up through that. I mean, and then they'll send you the information on when that's coming, and you can log in. And
that's a great next step for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for taking time to be here to share a little bit of what's on your heart and about yourself. And I know that God's going to use this conversation for sure. And I'm looking forward to see how He uses it.
Yeah, me too.
And thank you guys for watching and listening. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. Help us spread the word about the podcast by sharing on socials too. Thanks again, and we'll see you next episode.